Last week, a viewer named Sam made a request in a YouTube comment writing, "The new Tufts Dietary Compass rates foods for nutritional value, rating things like chocolate ice cream as healthier than a granola bar. Is that for real?" I had not heard about that before, but my knee-jerk reaction was that the scientific rating itself probably fine, and the real problem is probably in the way that people, that is the mainstream media, spin it. So I Googled it, and I did find several articles mocking the idea that, for instance, this study says ice cream is better for you than a multi-grain bagel. Aha, I thought to myself, that is what is happening here. You know, in some cases, like a low-calorie protein ice cream is a healthier choice than a carb-laden bagel. And surely Tufts researchers are calling for a more nuanced discussion of what we as a society consider healthy and unhealthy foods. So I found the actual research and I read it, and it turns out, no, I was wrong. It's the opposite. Tufts is calling for a less nuanced take on healthy versus unhealthy foods, and it's all really stupid and wrong and confusing. Before I go any further, maybe obvious content warning, but a content warning all the same. In this video, I'm going to be talking about food and health, and that may be upsetting to people, particularly those with disordered eating habits. So if you're one of those people, feel free to give this video a skip. So, the Food Compass was developed by researchers at the Friedman School of Nutrition Science and Policy at Tufts University. And let me start with the positive stuff. You know, they have a really nice website where you can go and read all about this project. You can see the profiles of the people who are running it. You can access the paper, which was actually published last year in Nature Food, and which, though Nature puts it behind a paywall, it is accessible in full without a subscription if you click the link through the Food Compass website. I assume the mainstream articles are just coming out about this now because maybe they just got their website up and running. Maybe the article just got delivered to the public. I don't know. But the purpose of the research was to develop an algorithm for sorting foods by how healthy they are, combining a large number of data points together and then spitting out a single number from 1, eat this and die, to 100, eat this and live forever. The end use case, they hope, is for things like food labeling and policy recommendations, supposedly simplifying a complicated thing for consumers and politicians and others so that they can easily make healthy decisions. Foods scored above 70 are to be encouraged. Those 31 to 69 are to be consumed in moderation, and anything under 30 is to be minimized. The researchers took into account a number of aspects of a food, including the nutrient ratios, additives, vitamins, minerals, and how they're processed. And they averaged all these things together to come up with each food's final score, leading to absolute fucking chaos. Like, yes, ice cream beats bagels, but also Lucky Charms beats a whole egg fried in butter. Canned pineapple in heavy syrup beat cheddar cheese. Honey Nut Cheerios beat skinless chicken breast. And watermelon tied with kale for the healthiest spot. All of these things are wrong. God forbid, Skynet ever takes over and tries to raise humans like farm animals to be as healthy as possible, we'd all have diabetes and protein deficiencies. Before I get into the weeds here, allow me to declare my conflicts of interest. I'm a pescatarian, means I eat fish. I eat a mostly vegetarian diet, but I don't eat any non-fish meat. I also work out and I'm trying to build muscle. So even though I don't eat a lot of meat, I do place a big emphasis on getting enough protein in my diet. While I'm at it, I'll mention the authors declared conflicts of interest. In the paper, they write that the lead author receives personal fees from Acasti Pharma, Barilla, Cleveland Clinic Foundation, Danone and Motif Foodworks, is on the scientific advisory boards of Brightseed, Calibrate, Day 2, ended in June 2020, Elysium Health, Filtracine, Foodome, Human Co., January Inc., Perfect Day, Season, and Tiny Organics, and receives chapter royalties from Up to Date. Another author, Jeffrey B. Bloomberg, only, quote, reports personal fees from Guiding Star's licensing company. But I checked out his CV on Tufts' website, which is linked from the Food Compass site, and that says that he's also on the advisory boards for the Cranberry Institute, the Cranberry Marketing Committee of USDA, Sagterra Inc., Smarty Pants Vitamins, the California Walnut Commission, the California Prune Board. Until 2017, he had spent 7 years on the editorial board for Herbalife Nutrition Institute, which is a pyramid scheme. And while he's not listed as an author on this paper, the Food Compass website lists Colin Ream as a team member and links to his Google Scholar profile showing that he is employed by PepsiCo Global Research and Development. In 2020, Ream co-authored a paper with several of the Food Compass authors, and in that paper's conflicts of interest, he reports consulting fees from the Dairy Management Institute, PepsiCo, General Mills, Unilever, and Florida Department of Citrus. General Mills, of course, makes Cheerios and Lucky Charms and came out as the healthiest brand overall for rices and grains in this study. PepsiCo owns everything. They own Quaker Oats, instant oatmeal got a 79 on this study. They also own Tropicana. Orange juice got a 78 in this study. So this shouldn't negate their findings, but it should make us all take a bit of a harder look at them. Like, how exactly did they determine that, for instance, frosted mini wheats are rated as 71, which is to be encouraged, and a boiled egg is rated as 51, eat in moderation? Because when you look at these things side by side, you can see that one serving of frosted mini wheats without milk has 210 calories, most of which come from carbohydrates, which mostly comes from the 12 grams of added sugar. That's about a quarter of your recommended value of sugar, for the record. As cereals go, it's not horrible, but I choose a different breakfast. I choose the to be consumed in moderation egg. I eat an egg every day. The egg has a third of the calories, but more protein and fat and zero sugar, meaning that compared to a bowl of cereal, I'm going to stay full longer and I'm going to reach my muscle building goals faster. I don't have high cholesterol, so the 185 milligrams don't bother me at all. And I get plenty of vitamins and minerals in the rest of my day's eating, so I don't need to eat a fortified cereal. It's a no-brainer. Even when you're eating just one serving of the cereal without milk or extra sugar, which no one does because that's psychotic, cereal is a lot of sugar that's just not particularly good for you, and which will leave you quite hungry before you even get to lunch. The egg is healthier in general, but yes, if you have high cholesterol, it may be healthier for you to eat your sad, dry cup of frosted mini wheats. That's why even in this algorithm, even if the egg came out on top, I would still be critical of it, because you can't just slap a number on a bunch of different foods to determine what's healthy or not for everyone. Here's another example. Frozen and then deep fried sweet potato fries are healthier at 69, nice, than skinless chicken breast, which is at 61. No. As a pescatarian, I don't even eat chicken breasts, but it's one of the healthiest things a meat eater can consume. 85 grams of chicken breast has only 120 calories, a whopping 26 grams of protein, negligible fat, and zero sugar. Nothing that you cook in a deep fat fryer is ever going to be healthier than that, particularly a starch that already has more calories, more sugar, more fat, and less protein for the same weight. In fact, the Food Compass finding for sweet potato fries and chips was so outrageously bonkers that the researchers felt that they had to make an entire supplementary text to explain it away. It's a whole lot of excuses, but it boils down to, but the potassium, the vitamins, which really we don't have to worry about because we just ate a bowl of fortified sugar for breakfast, remember? One big problem here is that they clearly overestimated the negative health effects of animal products. And I say that as someone who thinks Americans eat far too many animal products to the detriment of their health and the environment. But there's a difference between a skinless chicken breast and a hot dog. These things are not the same, and the science doesn't really show chicken breast as having that much of a negative health effect on people. This problem was pointed out by a group of food scientists who wrote this letter of concern, which also points out that the compass underestimates the negative health effects of ultra-processed food, like cereal and juice and ice cream. If you're curious about what it means for a food to be ultra-processed as opposed to just processed, check out this video I made back in 2019 where I define it and explain why it might be a bad thing. But the too long didn't watch is that ultra-processed foods often end up with poor nutrition, and they are specially formulated to make us eat them in much greater quantities than we realize or even want. Flaming Hot Cheetos are basically one nanobot advancement away from just jumping into your open mouth while you sleep. But that critique also points out that the Food Compass misclassified some things like sauteed kale and spinach as ultra-processed, a criticism that was repeated in a letter published in Nature Food that is unfortunately behind a paywall, but the author of that previous letter has a Twitter thread summarizing it, so I recommend you give that a read. I could go on and on about how bad the Food Compass's reductive take is, but essentially, what I'd like to say here is that Tufts is doing precisely the opposite of what they set out to do. Instead of simplifying things by giving all foods one handy number, they've actually made food choices overwhelmingly more confusing and complicated than they need to be. Like, yes, nutrition science can get complicated, but for the average person, choosing healthy things to eat doesn't have to be complicated. And efforts like this really only help the multi-billion-dollar fast food and snack and ultra-processed prepackaged food industry. They want you to see headlines like ice cream's just as healthy as a bagel so that you'll just throw your hands in the air and say, well, guess I might as well eat nothing but sugary garbage. What's the difference? So here's the way that I have simplified it before, and I'll simplify it again by just quoting Michael Pollan. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. Try to eat whole foods that you find in the vegetable aisle or the meat and seafood aisle. Try not to use too much oil when you cook. If you're trying to watch your weight, whether that means losing it or gaining it or making sure it stays steady, weigh your foods. Count the calories you're consuming using free online resources. Try not to drink your calories because that's just going to be sugar. Yes, including alcohol. And yes, including the smoothies that the Food Compass rates as being super healthy. No, they're just sugar. I know, these are all really boring things. Nobody is going to get rich selling an algorithm based on this. And certainly that industry that profits off of you just buying prepackaged, high-calorie, delicious food, they're not going to get rich off of it either. And it might be hard to avoid those delicious foods, but it's worth it if you value your health and this one body that you have for the rest of your life.